Draft season is behind us, and that means OTAs are coming up. They start on Monday. That's phase 3 of the 49ers offseason, and it's finally a chance to see this team practice again, albeit not in pads, without contact. It still is going to be an opportunity for the 49ers to line up 11 on 11. There's going to be 9 of these practices in phase 3 or OTAs, and it's definitely worth previewing just because of how big of a deal this will be for quarterback Trey Lance. No, Jimmy Garoppolo is not around the 49ers team facility, and he will not be throughout the course of OTAs, which last from around late May to mid-June. And then everything in this phase 3 will wrap up with a mandatory veteran minicamp. So it's Trey's time. He's going to have center stage for the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan has already emphasized how important these 9 practices will be for the second-year quarterback. So since it's worth previewing, I have 5 questions to go through as far as these OTAs go. Why don't we talk about them on this show today? My main question is, who's going to be snapping to Trey Lance? Because Alex Mack currently is undecided on whether or not he's going to retire. And even if Alex Mack is decided, that firm decision probably won't be announced until June 1st because of salary cap issues. The 49ers won't want Alex Mack to officially announce anything until then. But we may get a good clue as to Alex Mack's intentions during OTAs because the 49ers need a good, competent center to be working with Trey Lance during these practices. That's how important they are. That's how important the center position is. And the next man on the pecking order for the 49ers right now is this guy, Jake Brendel. Jake Brendel was the backup center for the 49ers last season. And currently, the 49ers are speaking of him as a player who they really like, who may have developed into the position on the roster to replace Alex Mack if Mack does indeed retire, at least in the short term. Now, yes, you have rookies for the 49ers like Nick Zakelj, picked in the 6th round out of Fordham, who they see as a really, really smart player who might be able to develop cerebrally at the NFL level into that center position. They also have other options on the roster, such as Daniel Brunskill. Obviously, has played center for the 49ers before, but was the starting right guard in 2021. Donovan West, undrafted free agent signing out of Arizona State, played center in college, also a potential center project. But therein lies the key word, project. Both Zakelj and Donovan West are long-term center options and definitely not short-term plug-and-play options, and certainly not plug-and-play options for OTAs. And the 49ers need somebody who knows the playbook right now to work with Trey Lance. It's like a pitcher-catcher battery in baseball. You need that cohesion and that chemistry to seriously work on stuff. And if Alex Mack isn't at OTAs, I don't think that the first-string center is going to be Donovan West or Nick Zakelj. So in all likelihood, it would be the man up on the screen, and that is Jake Brendel, who earned a spot on the 53-man roster last year, and who also, by the way, got a ton of snaps with Trey Lance last season in practice. If Alex Mack got all the first-team reps with Jimmy Garoppolo, well, Trey Lance was obviously the second quarterback last season for the 49ers for almost all of the season, except for the times when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. Well, that means that Trey Lance was getting snaps from Jake Brendel. So there's a good chance the 49ers offense looks very, very different in 2022, right? Well, with the quarterback center cohesion being as important as it is, I don't think that we can discount the fact that Jake Brendel took so many snaps with Trey Lance at that center position in the 2021 season. So if it's Brendel under center, maybe we get a little bit of a clue. And hey, we may get a clue the other direction too. Maybe Alex Mack will walk back through that door, say that he's not retiring, and maybe Alex Mack will get that critical work with Trey Lance. Question 2, will rookie Danny Gray be in the larger wide receiver mix, and exactly where? Obviously, we know he was going to be in the very big picture for the 49ers at receiver, but he was the star of the show at the rookie minicamp this past weekend. He was fast. They were throwing him deep balls. They were throwing him quick out patterns. Danny Gray is the 49ers' hope for somebody that blows the top off the defense. High school track star in Texas, ran away from everybody at SMU. He wants to be the guy that gives the 49ers offense an added dimension. And if we talk about the 49ers offense changing, well, one of the big changes would be Trey Lance airing it out a bit to a defense that stretched out by a player like Danny Gray. So now we'll finally get to see Gray in a 49ers uniform, not alongside other rookies, but alongside most of the other veterans. Now, we don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to be present at OTAs. Chances are probably rather slim on that front, unless the 49ers and Samuel strike a contract extension between now and Monday. But even if Samuel's not there, you're going to have other veteran wideouts on the practice field. That includes Brandon Ayuk. Malik Turner is a signee that the 49ers brought in, used to play for the Seahawks, and then played for the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean, you look, obviously, Jawan Jennings is the 49ers' third wide receiver, but you just look at that wide receiver room. It's filled with established veterans like Brandon Ayuk. Well, Malik Turner, yeah, he's established to a certain degree. He's established to be the fourth or fifth wide receiver on the team. And you also have Ray McLeod, who obviously is going to make the 49ers team as a special teams player and as a gadget weapon. My big question in this whole mix, where exactly is Danny Gray going to line up? Where exactly is he going to fit in? How do the 49ers view Danny Gray now as a rookie who is yet to earn his stripes? And if he's in a primary spot playing quite a few first-team snaps with Trey Lance at OTAs, well, that means that we're probably going to see a lot of Danny Gray as a rookie in 2022. Now, the pads aren't on yet, right, at OTAs. So the physical part of the game is not really going to be present, and that's going to be evaluated in training camp. But this is going to be a start, and we'll figure out where exactly Danny Gray will be. What clues will we get about progress on potential contract extensions for Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel? I had to get the picture up there of number 19, Deebo Samuel, because he's the veteran that we've been talking about all offseason with his request for a trade. And then obviously the trade didn't happen during the draft. It seemed that the 49ers called Deebo's bluff. It seems likely that the 49ers and Deebo Samuel will reach an extension, but we don't know where exactly they are yet in that process. And obviously, Nick Bosa has been going about his business much more quietly than Deebo Samuel, but he was drafted in the same year in 2019, number 3 overall pick. So Nick Bosa is also in line for a lucrative contract extension this offseason. Might we get clues as to where these two situations are at during these OTAs? Well, the biggest clue would be if both of these guys showed up, or if just one of them showed up. If Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel are both there, well, that's a clue that things are at least going very fruitfully. They're moving forward in any potential contract discussions. Now, OTAs are voluntary. It's not until the mandatory minicamp in mid-June that attendance becomes compulsory. So the fact that OTAs are voluntary means that even if Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel don't show up, we shouldn't read too far into things. Now, we have other data as far as Deebo Samuel goes. We have the data of the requested trade. Obviously, stuff has been going rocky on that front, but there is a chance that we do see the needle move a little bit here during OTAs. And I can tell you that at least from the Deebo Samuel perspective, with how important these practices are to Trey Lance, the 49ers would actually like Deebo to be there in the mix, because then you have the offense looking as it might, or resembling what it might resemble during the regular season. And that's, I think, valuable when you're talking about a highly choreographed sport like football. You're trying to make sure that Trey Lance is completely comfortable with everything around him as he further integrates into the system. And with Deebo Samuel being such an important piece for the 49ers, well, it only makes sense that the team would want him there. But still, it's probably less likely than likely that it'll be there. Still, I'm watching these next couple of weeks for clues on the contractual fronts of both Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. On to question number 4. How do the 49ers plan to align the secondary? Well, why don't we pop open the depth chart for this one? This is the 90-man depth chart. This is a look at where exactly everybody projects to line up. This is my own sheet. This is up on Google Drive or Google Sheets, and the link is going to be available for you in the comments section of this video. But you could take a look at the secondary down here. Just made it a little bit bigger for you. And there are a lot of bodies. The 49ers are doing better than they did last year in terms of depth. The one example that I always try to use to illustrate this is that they were relying on Jason Verrett being healthy last year as cornerback 1. This season, Verrett's cornerback 2 at best, because Charvarius Ward is the guy they're paying to be cornerback 1. And even if Verrett's not healthy, he's still highlighted in red because he's working back from an ACL tear. even if he's not healthy, they have other options. And last season, they really were put in between a rock and a hard place when Verrett did tear that ACL in week 1. Anyway, Verrett is not going to be participating in these OTAs. He's still recovering from the ACL tear, but there is a shot that he's ready rather early in the 2022 season because he did get hurt so early in that 2021 season. But outside of Verrett, I want to know who the 49ers line up at both outside cornerback spots. Ward's obviously going to be one. Is Emmanuel Mosley going to be the other outside corner? Probably. But what did the 49ers do when they bring in the nickel package? Do they kick Mosley to the inside to this nickelback spot? And do they bring in Ambry Thomas? What about Dante Johnson? Does he just remain the Swiss Army utility knife? And how about that rookie, Samuel Womack? Are they going to bring Womack into the nickel spot right away with the ones, or is Womack going to start with the twos? He was the 5th-round draft pick for the 49ers, 5'9", quick guy, projects as their future nickel, but there's just no way to know where the 49ers view him from a strength perspective. Remember, it took Ambry Thomas quite some time, and we're going to check in on Ambry Thomas to see if he's put on a little bit more muscle, because it is an adjustment to play at the NFL level. And then there's Tariq Castro-Fields, a player who was drafted in the 6th round, but I talked to his DB coach from Penn State, Terry Smith. Terry Smith said this is a 2nd or 3rd round talent. And, some of the projections had Tariq Castro-Fields in the 3rd or the 4th rounds. Toolsy player, smart player. How much has he impressed the 49ers here through a couple of weeks of meetings? Is he going to be ready to take that practice field and maybe get thrown in there with the twos and a couple reps of the ones? I don't know. There are a lot of different permutations that can happen for the 49ers at the nickel and cornerback spots. And I haven't even talked about the guys on the right side of this line. Darqueze Dennard played some important nickel snaps for the 49ers last year. Fred Warner seemed to hint that if the season started today, he'd be the guy for the 49ers at nickel. So maybe Darqueze Dennard gets a little bit of time. And Kadar Hallman, he is former college teammates with Samuel Womack from Toledo. He runs a fast 40. He might be in the mix. And hey, I know a lot of people are going to be yelling, what about Deommodore Lenoir? Well, here he is. I don't even have him projected to make the 90-man roster at this point, or the 53-man roster at this point. But obviously there's going to be some permutations, some shuffling, and Lenoir's chance to really make his mark, that's going to start in earnest on Monday, because it is a battle in the 49ers cornerback room. The fact that he's on the outside looking in my projections, you just illustrate how crowded that room has become after all these offseason acquisitions. Of course, we shouldn't forget the safety position too. If you look at that sheet, the safety position has some question marks. I don't expect Tarvarius Moore to be back on the practice field quite yet, so that the 49ers line up free agent acquisition George Odom on the first team opposite Jimmy Ward. If they do that, then we'll get our first look at Odom doing a little bit of stuff in coverage. I know that there won't be contact allowed, but coverage is the question mark for Odom. So it's going to be intriguing to me to see how they mix and match that safety position, of course, with Talanoa Hufanga still on the roster. All right, and that moves us on to the final question, number 5. How much progress will Trey Lance make over these 9 practices? This is the big one. This is the ultimate question. Everything else is really a puzzle piece that builds this final illustration. These practices are about Trey Lance because a team is going to live and die by the play of its quarterback ultimately, right? It's so important that the 49ers, on both a micro and a macro level, get the most possible out of Trey Lance. On a macro level, they traded so much draft capital, and I know that draft capital is not worth quite as much because the team made it to the NFC title game last year, and if they make it far this season, that next first-round pick that headed to Miami will also be at the end of the first round, not at the top of the first round. Remember, they traded to get the number 3 pick to get Trey Lance, but still, it's undeniable that the 49ers invested a lot in Trey Lance. And I think it's obvious that they have really high hopes for him. I think it's obvious that they were impressed with him throughout practice last year, the way that the coaches and the way that the players talk about Trey Lance. But I also think that it's obvious that it's going to be a tough learning curve for Trey Lance just because he was so inexperienced in college at North Dakota State. He got some of that experience that he needed last season on the 49ers practice squad and through 2 starts, 10 total quarters of play. But starting for the 49ers, if that's indeed what happens in this 2022 season, is going to be a whole new ball game. And that's why Kyle Shanahan has said Trey Lance from point A, which is right now, to point B, which is the season opener, is going to have to take advantage of every single piece of action, every single rep that he gets this offseason. And those 9 OTA practices are going to be in the world of the 49ers and to Trey Lance, because the improvement that has to come, like the biggest jump has to come between year 1 and year 2 before that sophomore campaign. Year 1, you're swimming, deer in the headlights. Everything's moving really fast, especially for a player coming from a small school like Trey Lance. And I think he handled it really well. I think he tangibly improved in between starts 1 and quarters 1 and 10. I made a whole video series, so you could subscribe, like the channel, do whatever you need to, where you could watch the all 22 of every single Trey Lance snap. And it was really clear that he did improve immensely from quarters 1 to quarter 10 against the Houston Texans there in week 17. But that's only the beginning. Now he has to turn around, take that deer in the headlights experience, and now he has to apply what he learned to the improvement processing in his game. And that happens over the course of this offseason, maybe more so in training camp. But right now, he's going to be taking center stage. He gets every single rep with the ones. Jimmy Garoppolo's out rehabbing his shoulder. And these 9 practices are just going to be huge for Trey Lance. So that's the main thing that we'll be watching. Everything else is interesting, right? How the 49ers line up in the secondary, where Danny Gray is, who's snapping to Trey Lance, but especially that last one, who's snapping to Trey Lance, relates closely to the most important overarching key, and that is, what is Trey Lance going to get out of these 9 practices? So we'll find out. It's going to be fun. OTA preview is in the books, and OTAs will soon be in the books as well. They start Monday. Media availability, the first one for OTAs is on Tuesday. So everybody go ahead, subscribe, like the channel. Had a big feature on Drake Jackson yesterday. Interview on the YouTube channel with Drake Jackson's dad. So Dennis Jackson. I mean, the guy was awesome. So make sure you go ahead and watch that. If you haven't yet, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to The Athletic and check out the Drake Jackson feature. $1 a month deals up right now. It was a big one yesterday, and it will give you some insight into the 49ers top draft pick of this cycle. All right, everybody, take care. Thank you for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.